Fabulous. Okay, so my name is Linny. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar this evening. I am part of the newly diagnosed team at Parkinson's UK. Just before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that we aren't able to give personal advice. If you've got something very specific, you really need to be guided by your own healthcare team. But what we will do is reflect the experience and the expertise that we have here in the room. Before we get started, then, I will ask the panel to introduce themselves. Marjabin, if you can tell us who you are and what your connection to Parkinson's is, please.
Right, thank you very much, Linny. My name is Mahajabeen. I'm a neurology consultant at the University of Sheffield. I do a lot of Parkinson's related research for last 4 years, 5 years actually. So I have a lot of interest in neurodegenerative diseases. So initially I started with MND and then now I'm working with Parkinson's for much longer. So the reason and one other thing I want to emphasize is for last couple of years, I've been doing some work with Parkinson's UK, which is aiming at giving bite-sized information for patients, carers, so that we can talk more freely about the diet, the constituents of diet, good, bad, microbiome, bacteria, yogurts, and all these things. So this is a space that I quite enjoy talking about and I enjoy researching about because my current research is on gut-brain axis and some of the medication that we are trialing. So happy to be with the panel and thank you very much for inviting me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marjabin. And Andy, can I come to you?
Hi, I'm Andy. I have Parkinson's. I was diagnosed 7 years ago. I'm married with 3 children and 5 grandchildren. And I used to work in the automotive industry, but I retired some years ago and now spend my time managing Parkinson's, I suppose, is the truth.
Thanks, Andy. And Dipna, can we come to you?
Sure, my name is Dipna Anand. I'm a chef, author, and restaurateur, specializing in Indian food, have a few cookbooks, do a little bit of television, and live with my mum, who's had Parkinson's for almost 15 years. So, learning as I go along about her eating habits, about what it's like to live with someone who has Parkinson's, and almost living in the same shoes as her on some days because I feel like I'm going through the same thing. But I've been associated with Parkinson's UK for about 6 years now and always happy to support.
Amazing, thank you. And last but definitely not least, Shane.
Hi, my name is Shane. I am based at Niche in Ulster University, Coleraine. So I graduated with a PhD in nutrition last year. So my PhD focused on mostly B vitamins, brain health, and using machine learning techniques to investigate the most important predictors of cognition. But within the last year, I've started to focus on Parkinson's research, specifically in relation to gut health.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So thank you everyone for coming. Thanks for signing up and thank you for sending in your questions. We've had loads of questions sent in and there's some real big themes that have come in. So I'm just going to jump right in and get started. So I'm going to come to you first, Marjabin, and we've had a lot of questions around medication, timing of it, and the impact of diet on medication. And I just wondered if you could just outline sort of, the one or two of the most popular types of medication and why diet is important in relation to those.
Yeah, that's probably one of the commonest questions that I usually get in terms of diet and Parkinson's. I think the most important thing that I would like to address is the protein intake. So for some reasons, um, there is a lot of fear around what type of protein to eat, when to eat. So there are two thumb rule. One is you need protein, so that's the most important thing, because due to the aging process, we start to lose muscle, lose collagens. So we definitely need those protein in our body so that it helps our with our balance, with our gait, and all sorts of muscle function. So protein is needed, and that's the key point I keep mentioning, that however much the worry is about medication around it, we need to make sure we take enough protein. So what I say is so it's usually 1 to 1.2 grams of protein in patients over 70s who started to lose weight, or probably slightly less who are younger than that, so 0.8 to 1 gram per kilo. So in a 70-kilo man, I would say 70 to 80 grams of protein a day would be fine, but it has to be good quality, less fat content in it, and then easily absorbable form so that it gets into the body and works exactly what it needs to do. So that's the first point. And second point is when to eat protein. So that's another key question that I keep getting in these seminars. So the issue is with the dopamines that we take, so the levodopa tablets, not with the other medication that are used as like a booster for the dopamines. So the key thing is whatever we eat protein wise, it has to be planned around the medication, which is levodopa, in other words, Madopar or Sinemet. Okay. So the reason behind it is when we eat our meal, and what happens is it slows the absorption of any medication, especially these type of medication and these group of these, I mean, patients with living with Parkinson's, because we think that there is a direct connection of gut and the brain, so it may cause low, like reduced motility of the gut. So we definitely need to make sure that we leave at least 45 minutes to 1 hour before we take a meal, or we should take the tablet after 2 hours. We take the meal which is rich in protein. Okay, so there should be a nice gap between the meal and the medication. Now, that's fairly easy for people in who are taking like 3 tablets a day, because you can space things out. But sometimes it's not as clear as saying someone that you need to do like 45 minutes before and 2 hours after. So sometimes it's not easy. So in those situations, what I suggest is take, if it irritates your stomach, then make sure you eat some small cracker or like a rice cake or anything that may be a little bit carbohydrate rich, less protein content in it, and then it will just create a layer into your stomach, and then the medication can work if you feel hungry or if there is any gut related issue with the medication. And if there is any specific question about around protein, I'm very happy to answer around that, but this is just the first couple of thoughts that I wanted to get through.
Thanks, Marjabin. Somebody was just saying they're struggling to hear you a little bit. I don't know if you can get your sound up just a little bit. And I just wanted to come to Andy next to say, is that resonating with you, Andy, in terms of sort of
Yeah,
medication? Have you noticed stuff? Go on, yeah.
yeah. The single most important thing is to time the medication in such a way that the medication can be absorbed by the gut and not blocked by a meal of protein that you've taken 10 minutes earlier. So I've found in the last few years, and discussing it with other people I've met, the people who have a rigid plan of every day of when they take their medication seem to me to be better than the people who sort of smell the wind and think they'll take a tablet. And I take 6 tablets a day, equally spaced every 3 hours. And I time my food intake not to mess up the absorption of the Madapar or the levodopa.
So super organized. And is that how it feels for your mum, Dipna? And are you kind of supporting with that?
Yeah, I totally resonate with that because large amounts of protein, especially with her Produodopa, she has a pump called Produodopa, which she has to wear pretty much 24/7. And I have seen where she'll have a protein-rich meal and straight away like within minutes after, her stiffness will kick in. Now we have to balance that, and it's important to find like a, a, a balance, like I just said. But a common strategy is for her a lighter meal, a lighter protein meal during the day, and then if she's having a bit more of protein rich, then try and structure it in the evening, and that's kind of started to work for her. But there are certain things that are heavy in proteins and dairy, like halloumi, that she has found really do trigger her, even certain pulses and lentils. And I think everyone is different, but it's just about finding um, that best balance for you. But there's definitely a connection in regards to protein and the interference with Parkinson's medication for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll cycle back round to this, but just kind of on our way. I wanted to. I hear a lot about about the protein and all of these sorts of things, and I was just thinking about how we get to the point where we have trusted information about it. Um, and Shane, I think you were doing some research recently. I think you might be partway through. Can you tell us a little bit about your research, how it's carried out, and maybe where and how we can work out when we're getting the right information that means something to us?
Yeah, so the research I'm doing at the moment is an impact report. So it's called Parkinson's disease from the gut to the brain. And basically, this is kind of aimed towards like industry and politicians. But in this, we're just taking all of the evidence from randomized control trials, and we are consolidating this evidence and writing it in such a way that's understandable to anyone. And then, as part of this as well, we had a health economist because, again, if this is directed towards politicians, you want to see is there savings to the NHS. So we had a health economist on board as well to check through his economic modeling what are the potential savings of using, in my case, probiotics versus not using probiotics or using laxatives. So that was part of that research. Another study that we're working on in our group at the moment is called Food for PD. So what that is that's a randomized control trial, and we're giving people with Parkinson's either a drink with prebiotics and B vitamins or a control drink that is just very similar in taste. And we want to see the effects on gut health. So we want to see if that improves, because constipation is such a big issue in people with Parkinson's. We want to see, will this prebiotic, specifically inulin, will this improve gut health in people with Parkinson's? So that is ongoing. I think it's nearly at the end. So by the time we analyze the data, and then obviously the next step after that would be to hopefully publish it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And just a shameless plug quickly for our research pages on the Parkinson's UK website, where you can go onto there and you can type in your postcode and you can join research trials. And there's all kinds of things, not necessarily in person, stuff you can do by phone. And really important that we get as much diversity as possible so that we get the best results that we can extrapolate from. And I'm really pleased that you mentioned the C word of constipation there, because I know it's something that, people feel embarrassed to talk about, but it's something that I hear so much when I'm talking to people, and has a huge impact on quality of life. Andy, I know you're involved in the Parkinson's UK Oxford support group. Is that something that you hear from people there? Is that a theme that comes up?
All the time. I mean, there are
Mm.
two things that come with Parkinson's that they don't tell you about. One is you lose your sense of smell and possibly taste. And you don't notice it, as if you don't get up one day and go, "Oh, I can't smell now." It happens over a number of years. And then the other one is constipation. So you need to modify your diet to give you the best chance of not getting constipation. And so smaller parcels of food, more fiber in the diet, things like this. Drinking orange juice with the levodopa, all things that help prepare the stomach for the flow of the drug through to the bloodstream. you really have to be very disciplined on when you take the drugs and when you take the nutrition and how it works together to try and give you the best chance of not having constipation and even being able to smell a bit as well.
No, I can see you nodding. Do you want to chip anything
Yeah,
in
I
there?
can definitely relate to that. My mum has a really big issue with her constipation, to the extent that sometimes like I wonder like how can I help her? So she's got the powders, etc. But at times just nothing helps. And she also finds when she's constipated, the medication refuses to work. And like I said, I feel very helpless in that situation. Even things like diet, she'll have fiber-rich foods to help, or not help, I mean. So it's just again finding that balance out what works for her. Plus she's vegetarian as well, so she follows a strict vegetarian diet. But I know there's again a clear link with constipation and Parkinson's, and I see her unfortunately suffer with it. I would say probably about out of 7 days, twice a week, she's
Mhm.
constipated, and she's tried all those powders, the suppositories, etc. Sometimes they work. What she does drink a lot of, and what we find ourselves buying loads of, is prune juice.
Hmm.
Like she drinks it in bucket loads,
Mm.
and that helps her. So I just keep buying it for her.
So margipane, is constipation a symptom of Parkinson's? Is it can it be a little bit of a side effect from medication, or is it a bit of both? What's happening there?
Just checking, is it am I okay to hear or
Yeah, yeah.
sound is okay? Lovely. So I think constipation is so there is a new res there are new researches coming up with the diet, constipation, and gut axis. But a couple of years ago, there was a paper came up which suggested that constipation can precede the motor symptoms by 7 to 20 years. So it's even if the patient, by the time they're present to us, I think 50 to 70% patients already either had constipation for years or they have developed having constipation. So, and then that's a concrete concept of gut related Parkinson's, or whether the problem actually starts from the gut and makes their way up into the brain. So it's really relevant. The second thing is it reduces the motility. So whatever we eat, it stays in the stomach, takes longer time, go to the intestine, and subsequently it is expelled out. So that's these are the key problems with the condition itself. So either it's preceding, so the pathology there in the gut preceding the condition itself, or it may be a complication of the disease itself. So just to this point, so I tell my patients that there are three ways of combating it, and I completely agree with Dipna that even if we try our best, sometimes it's really difficult to manage constipation. But what I suggest is DEU, so DEW, so D for diet and drink. So diet with all those fiber-rich stuff that we all know. But what we usually forget is drink. So often we don't drink enough for the stool for the bulk of stool to be formed. And I advise my patients with constipation, you need to really carry a 2 liter bottle every time you move anywhere, because that's how you measure your fluid. And it does not have to be just water, it can be any other fluid, but make sure you drink enough. And I really get good feedback from the patient that, yeah, doctor, you said this, I followed it for XYZ weeks and then it really worked. So that's something that we really need to do. So that's drink. And then we need to do exercise as much as we can, because whatever we do, or it does not have to be anything really strenuous, but it has to be like simple walking that propels the gut to form the stool and then help with the constipation.
Right. So physical activity as well as looking at diet. Something that just sort of came into my mind there, and half gone out again. But so coming back to your studying, Shane, just thinking about the probiotics and things like that. So this would be your try. What do you hope to kind of learn from that? Would it be prevention, or is it treatment, or kind of living well? If we can find that those things have impact, what are you looking for?
So a big thing was in terms of constipation, it was the initial results that have come out so far is that probiotics help people with Parkinson's have one extra bowel movement per week. So because we're looking at all these randomized control trials, you have to find an outcome that's similar between all the trials. So one of the outcomes that was similar is counting the number of bowel movements per week. So from that, people who were on probiotics were having one extra bowel movement per week, which is obviously very promising results so far.
Yeah, amazing. And somebody's asked a question about the orange juice, Andy. What's your logic with the orange juice when you leave
Um,
it open?
I've read and spoken to people about taking a drink of orange juice, not orange squash, orange juice in the morning to help with the absorption of the first tablet.
Is that something you've come
Yeah.
across, Marjabin?
No, I yeah, I think I heard about the freshly prepared juice as opposed to store broths because freshly prepared's got the fiber in it to some extent, whereas the store broth it's really refined. So that's something that I came across. But uh, yeah, it's people um their lived experience sometimes trumps the scientific evidence. So if someone gets benefit, I always suggest that do if it works for you.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, I think. And sometimes I do think it's an art, not a science. I know that's a phrase that gets sort of thrown around. I'm just thinking, do you ever recommend that your patients, for example, keep a diary and keep a list and monitor it? And what's the best way to do that?
Do you mean in terms of diet or
Yeah, yeah.
I think I what I try to do is to make my patients understand the food content. So like the what we call is macros, so like the carbs, proteins, and fat content. And also the fiber, because that is the key component. So we eat a lot of the things without understanding what we are eating. And as soon as you realize that whatever we are eating is probably half the nutrition that we are getting that we should, then automatically that drives you to get better nutritious food for that. So essentially, rather than guiding them what to eat, I emphasize on the protein, like 70 grams of protein, and it's really easy these days, especially with the apps and with simply googling saying that one small 100-gram salmon fish is how much of protein, and it gives you the number, isn't it? So understanding those nutritional contents is very important, and that's what I advise. So we can't really stick to the same diet every day. There are people they do, but obviously we are human. We do deviate from our diet. As long as we follow a diet and deviate on the Saturday, Sundays, and come back to the same diet, then it actually evens out. And I never am not an advocate of being a strict someone who is strict about diet because that kills the fun, kills the joy. So you need to live your life as well, isn't it? So we can't really restrict everything, but as long as you remember that this is the protein that XYZ amount I need to take, and then this is the carbohydrate that I need to take. Avoid those bad stuffs like sugar or chocolate, not the chocolates, the candies in an excessive amount. I think it's okay. So we just need to give that the choice and the flexibility to the patient because otherwise it's not sustainable, is it?
Yes, and also presumably if people have got other conditions, coexisting conditions, somebody mentions diabetes, IBS, things like that, then really need to be guided by your Parkinson's specialist nurse, perhaps, or your your neurologist to work out what's going to work for you and what's safe to trial and error, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. Um, Dipna, just I noticed that you talked about changing routine for meals so that you would have less protein in the morning and perhaps top load with it, if you like, in the evening. Have you got any sort of top tips for what sorts of breakfasts are good?
So my mum keeps it quite light when it comes to breakfast. Um, sh I also find that she sometimes has it in her mind, and this is again, there is some correlation that the medication works better on an empty stomach. So it's very hard for me to change her mindset sometimes and just say that that's fine, but you still need to eat. And it's almost becoming a bit of a mission to actually get her to eat. So I have to almost become quite forceful with breakfast and lunch, and I have to say things like, "Mum, if you don't eat, you won't be able to function, at all." And her Parkinson's is quite advanced. So her typical breakfast and what she's good with start of the day is a banana, a toast, and just a fried egg. And she has recently found that with that routine, she is quite okay, but nothing heavy for breakfast. She also has started to get really hungry in the middle of the night. And when I say the middle of the night, I'm talking like 3, 4 in the morning, and I'll find her in the kitchen, snacking. But she finds when she has a snack, like Mujbeen mentioned, the cracker, those sort of things are perfect and they don't trigger her stiffness and her
Mm.
dyskinesia so much. So yeah, just a light breakfast like that, nothing too heavy at all. There's certain foods that she just won't touch because she has in her mind that no, I can't eat aubergines and I can't eat okra because of this reason. But that's just something. It's very hard to change the mindset of my mum.
Fair enough. And what about you, Andy? What's your average sort of breakfast? Are you a food?
Porridge, half a banana, and an orange
Mhm. Yeah, and
every
like
day.
yeah, Marjabin says that
Mm.
I'm sure there are ways of varying that and things so
Yeah,
that you're not always having the same thing. But yeah, yeah,
One quick
yeah. And,
uh,
yeah. Go on.
quick advice is there is a thumb rule I learned from one of our dietitian colleagues is for the protein 10 30 30. So 10 gram of protein in the morning, which is essentially one egg, really. And then 30 is lunchtime, and 30 or 40 at night time, because now there are more concept of what Dipna suggested. It's called a protein redistribution diet, where you take a bit more at night, because then we are less active at night. So there is, even if you are a tiny bit more stiff than the daytime, then it probably will not hamper the day-to-day life activities. So 10 30 40 is something that we keep suggesting about the protein content in the meal.
Hmm. Okay. So somebody's asked a question about something very specific, intestinal methanogen overgrowth, and asking if Shane has done any research on that. Is that something you've heard about, Shane? Has that come into your research at all?
No, that is not coming at all. Can you
No.
say the term? Can you say the term again?
Intestinal methanogen overgrowth. Does it mean anything to you, Marjabin?
Is it some kind of bacteria that generates methane? Um, I think one of my colleagues delivered a talk. She's from Cambridge. I probably am just trying to reach to a point where I know that this is what this is. It may
Yeah,
not be the exact thing, but
yeah.
I know what the question is about. So is there some type of bacteria that overgrows and that cause bloating, if I'm not wrong?
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, sorry, we can't answer that one any more than that. But we also have a question about fat. And I mean, on top of fat, we had somebody who asked a question about sugar. Should we be avoiding sugar? So sugars and fats, you did mention, Marjabin. What's your take on those in the diet?
So I think let's come to fat first. So healthy fat is absolutely essential. And by healthy fat, what I'm particularly mean, and I'm quite an advocate for Mediterranean diet because there are some research suggesting that it does delay Parkinson's onset and it does help with the cognition and to some extent minor motor symptoms. So this is not there is a new study going on, I think MedPark, about Mediterranean diet. So I'm banking on that and hopefully we will get a lot more granular data in there. So in Mediterranean diet, the fat they use is olive oil, avocado oil, animal fat, but less processed. So butter, which is less processed. And these fats are important because at the same time, um, we we emphasize on protein, but we need energy because fatigue is a common symptom in Parkinson's. And if the diet is devoid of good fat, then it will perhaps will make things worse. And fat is also important for some absorption of vitamins. So we need vitamin D, vitamin A for our function, and then unless we have enough good quality fat, it will not get absorbed. So absolutely needed, but the good type of fat rather than processed animal fat.
Mhm.
And coming to the sugar or glucose, complex carbohydrate is something that we often talk about, like grains, whole grains. These are rather than anything processed or refined. If we get the whole food, like whole grain rice or breads which are whole grain and with seeded. I think these are recommended because these do help with the constipation as well, with those fiber content in it. Sugar is not good for any health condition like Parkinson's. And there are some data suggesting that the worse the diabetes is, the risk of the Parkinson's symptom progression is higher. So those with diabetes, I think sugar content should be very carefully managed, just to make sure that we control the average of blood sugar so that it does help with the with the symptoms of Parkinson's.
Yeah, yeah. So, Andy, what I'm just wondering from your point of view, then, has your diet changed a lot since you were diagnosed with
Um,
Parkinson's?
in the last 2 or 3 years, we've drifted the diet in the direction of the Mediterranean diet and the mind diet. They're sort of linked. So we've reduced. We've tried to eat a more healthy diet than we did before, but I haven't
Mhm.
lost weight. Um, and the advantage of the Mediterranean diet is, in theory, you're allowed red wine because
Right. Well, we'll definitely come back to that one. Yeah.
you've still got to enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Shane, did
about.
you want to chip in?
Yeah, I was just going to say with the healthy fats point, I just wanted to add on to that. So this is one of the reasons why it's recommended to have at least one portion of oily fish per week because it's a great source of omega-3. So just wanted to for anyone who doesn't eat fish, this is just one of the reasons that it's not just omega-3 you get, but you also get other nutrients and you get a really good source of protein. So
Mm.
just wanted to plug that in there.
Yeah, thanks. And Andy, I think I interrupted you there. Did
No,
you
no,
have
no. I've finished. Thank you.
Right, right, yeah. So one of the questions that came in was asking if alcohol, is it okay to drink alcohol, or should they be absolutely avoiding it completely? Um, Marjabin, what's your view on that?
So it's again a very common question in the clinic and in the seminar, because as Andy rightly suggested, we got to enjoy our life as well, isn't it? So it's there is so to simply answer to the question, is alcohol banned? That the answer is no. So you can drink in moderation, drink in a quantity that does not increase the risk of fall, because that is one of the key complications, or like I mean, fall is not nice. So that's what we suggest. So the science wise, I think there are two big observational studies suggested there is no connection with alcohol and Parkinson's. One suggested that moderate drinking negatively impact the Parkinson's progression, and one suggested that it does not. So there's no uniform data about alcohol. But with this at the same time, these studies also emphasized because the alcohol increases the gut leakiness. So when the gut becomes leaky, it helps those harmful bacteria and toxin to enter through the gut into the into the bloodstream. So that's what we don't want and don't need. So I think in moderation it's fine, not excessive, and to make sure that we are cautious about the falls if we drink heavy.
Yeah, and probably not, don't know, always get nervous when a particular food is demonized completely, and then yeah. So Andy, you mentioned the sort of going towards a Mediterranean style diet, and if I understand that correctly, that's more about sort of legumes and sort of lentils,
Yeah, it's
chickpeas.
lots of vegetables, lots of beans, and lots of colours.
Mm,
And there are various, well-known books written by famous authors recommending the detail.
mm,
But we look at it from the point of view of the Zoe diet, and I take a picture of everything I eat. It's a bit strange in a restaurant when you do it. And it's a bit strange when you're with friends and you do it, but they get used to it. It just
mm,
keeps a record for my own benefit. And so if, for example, a few days later after a meal out, I find myself with constipation, I can sort of trace the reason back to some of the food I ate in a restaurant or somebody's house that I wasn't in complete control of.
mm.
Um, but keeping a diary, as was said earlier, be it a photographic diary or a written diary, is very helpful to understand your own physiology
Mm.
because everybody is slightly different. And of course, the other thing is that a lot of us lose our sense of smell, as I said earlier, but we keep our sense of taste. So having spicy food can be very beneficial if it's the right spice.
Mm.
Um, and that can also help with constipation again in the right proportions. So
Yeah, so
it's about
definitely come back to that in a moment.
balancing
Sorry.
these different things.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I'll probably come to you about that in a moment, Dipna. But just before I do you use any sort of techie style apps on your phone or anything, Andy, to help you monitor
yeah,
things?
I use the Zoe app.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's Michael Mosley, the late Michael Mosley, was involved
Yeah.
in, and
Yeah.
you pay a fee, and nothing's for free. Um, but it does some analysis of what you've eaten and all the rest of it, providing you're honest and you take a photograph of everything you've eaten.
Right.
I was caught out one night eating a meal and then later in the fridge not taking a photograph of what I was eating.
Right. So there are quite a few apps out there, and whilst I wouldn't recommend any particular one, we have got a whole web page dedicated to it.
Mm.
On the Parkinson's UK website, we've got something called a tech guide. And so if you wanted to have a shop around and look at apps, you'd be very welcome to do that there. And there's people with lived experience who've used them who kind of rate them and say what was good and bad about them, so you can work out what would work for you. So Dibner, I was just sort of thinking, following on from Andy and the legumes and the chickpeas and the lentils and the beans and things. We all know that stuff, for most of us, is good for us. I have to say, I don't necessarily just look at a lentil and go, "Oh, I can't wait to dig into that." But any tips from you about, I don't know, herbs and spices that work for you? And
Um,
then yeah, then I'll come back to
yeah,
you, Marshby.
definitely. Just going first of all on this diary point. Obviously, everyone with Parkinson's is different. It's at different stages. My mum finds it very hard to record anything on her phone or in a diary or even make notes. So she kind of has to have mental notes, or we have to be there for guidance. So just that bit. Sometimes she is able to use her phone and she can, but by that time she might have forgotten what she's had, etc. So we do have those kind of challenges. Coming back to like the good fats, one thing that she really does insist on making is her own homemade ghee. And she finds that that really helps her, not in excessive amounts, maybe a tablespoon a day in any of the, let's just say, vegetable curries that she's making, packed full of goodness, packed full of obviously all those assorted vegetables. What she is unable to take at all, and obviously me being a curry chef, I not get upset, but it sometimes disheartens me that she can't taste or have all this spice because her mouth gets really sore. And apparently that's a side effect from the medication. We have taken it up with the doctor. So she is unable to take any spice. She can have things like coriander and cumin and turmeric, but as soon as you put things like green chili or red chili, she just, even if you put the slightest amount, she won't be able to take it. But what she really does enjoy are those lentil dishes, whether it's, urid lentils or mung lentils. She's found that red kidney beans don't particularly suit her. So she avoids that. But other foods that she really enjoys are, like I said, she has a cauliflower and potato curry, and she enjoys that. She enjoys spinach and things like that. So again, I think it's just about finding a balance and what works for you. But she can't take a lot of spice. But what I will say is that Indian food can be made without red chili and green chili. It doesn't have to be spicy all the time. So just enhancing it with flavors that she is okay with and she is able to taste, and things like fresh chopped coriander, dried fenugreek leaves, they're perfect and they have lots of different medicinal values and properties.
Amazing. Yeah. Marjabin.
Yes. So quick 3 points from the discussion. So, can't agree with you more, Dipna, about ghee is another fantastic source of good quality fat. Coming to the point with Andy is about the app. Some apps there are a barcode scanner, so you can directly scan the barcode and then calculate the portions. So I find it useful to sometimes just um, if say we are taking a store bought meal, then I can just scan the barcode with the app and it gives me the exact amount of protein, carb, and etc. So that's another useful way of doing it. And the third point is about the spices. Tipna has brilliantly discussed the different spices, and completely agree that it does not have to be really hot or like loads of chili in it. One important thing in Mediterranean diet is they use a lot of dried herbs and spices, which is a good source of antioxidant, which is sometimes it can act. So, although the previous studies did not show much of benefit with antioxidant, but these are good things. So, I think dried spices and herbs that can be added to the diet.
And there's no reason why a vegetarian diet shouldn't be able to meet the targets with kind of proteins and fiber and things.
No, I don't think so. So I think there are for last 10 years, I think we are getting a lot of vegetarian friendly proteins easily available in the stores. I, I I mean, things are changing, so which is always good. So you get another aisle in big stores, isn't it? Paneer is a good one for good source of protein, and any kind of cheese which is with higher content of protein. And now there are loads of fortified, although I don't recommend fortified things because sometimes it's more processed than fortified. But I think if there is a clear outline of how much of protein in 100 grams, then I would probably go for it, higher the protein content in there. Tofu is another good one. Lentils we talked about. So there are loads of other sources where it's easy. It's possible to meet those targets with the protein in vegetarian.
Mm. Yeah, so that's good to know. For those of you out there who are vegetarians, I've been popping questions in there. Um, Shane, with your study, which is the probiotic thing, so if well, we don't know what the outcome of those is going to be. So would that be a supplement, like a supplement that you would sort of maybe think that might be something you'd be recommended? And I'm just wondering about, we're talking about the food and adding in spices and herbs and things like that, which are good for us. And is that ideal compared to taking supplements, or are there particular supplements that we should be recommending to people who are taking, who are living with Parkinson's?
Well, studying nutrition, it would always be a food first approach normally. So we'd never we'd never really recommend supplements except for certain situations. So, for example, someone who will say doesn't eat a lot of fish, which is a good source of vitamin D, and maybe is could be bed bound or doesn't get out in the sun that much because obviously we can produce vitamin D through our skin. But again, living in Ireland or the UK, from anywhere from October to March, the sun is never going to be strong enough to the extent that we can produce vitamin D. So definitely during that time, I can see why people would recommend vitamin D, and I would agree with that, especially if because we don't eat a lot of fish. Also, for bone health, we have to think about calcium. So again, if you're maybe, especially if you're vegan, but if you're someone who doesn't eat a lot of dairy and you're not mindful of the non-dairy sources of calcium, then that would be another one. Um, so that's all I can. So
Yeah.
those two would spring to my mind first.
Yeah, no, interesting. And you've just reminded me there by talking about dairy. We've had a few questions in the chat about dairy and where do we stand on dairy. Are there different types that I'd probably come to you, Marjabin, for a comment on that?
So about dairy, I think there are two schools of thought. So one suggests that we should incorporate dairy in diet, mainly because, as Shane suggested, with the calcium and obviously milk is a good source. But there are other school of thought that they absolutely don't like dairy because it increases bloating, and also there is say someone is having tea with milk, and then that may collide with the timing of Parkinson's medication because obviously it contains protein. um, I I go by what the patient actually feels like. So I think if you are a dairy person, drink that. But if you are if you like something else, like yogurt, that gives you quite similar similar content of protein, and all those goodness of the milk. I think it's absolutely fine. Non dairy like oat milks, or almond milk. I think I tend to be cautious. The reason behind it is sometimes these are sweetened. So we are unknowingly taking a lot of sugar in it. There are unsweetened versions. So if you want to try the dairy version, then just make sure that these are non-sweetened, unsweetened milk that you take. But yeah, I think I highly recommend yogurt and cottage cheese. So these are the good sources of protein, and as well as alternative to the drinking milk.
And somebody's asking the question specifically about kefir. So I hear a lot about that, but I don't really know if we can kind of recommend or not recommend it. But it's just is that's another dairy product. Yeah, a bit like yogurt with live
Yes,
bacteria. Is that right? Yeah.
I think
So similar approach with that.
yeah, kefir is fine. As the reason behind it is there are few strains of bacteria. I'm sure Shane knows a lot about these. So there are a few strains of the bacteria which are beneficial in simpler terms, which can be available in kefir and yogurt. So I think these are recommended And then I think there are some processed probiotic available over the counter. Um, some works, some do not work, and it's so variable in person to person. But the natural, the source is I think that's slightly better than the processed one, I guess.
Yeah. Shane.
Yeah, I just wanted to add there's a very good website I'd recommend called the UK Probiotic Guide. So it was funded by the Inform Hub, and they essentially have a table of all the probiotics and the evidence base in terms of for whatever symptom. Now it's generally aimed towards just general adults, women's health, but it's definitely one I'd recommend because it shows the exact strain, how much, which product it's in. Now it's not like it's industry funded. It's just experts in the field who are doing a review of the evidence, and they're compiling a list of all of the probiotics and the evidence base, and they ranked them in terms of how strong the evidence is. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, very, very difficult one, like Marjbin says, isn't it? So what I'm getting from this is that we're all unique, and it's going to react differently with different people in the same way that medication reacts differently with different people. So it's really hard to recommend, and the science is still definitely emerging around the probiotics, is what I'm getting from you, Shane, although there is some information there. I wanted to move on. We had some questions about sort of practicalities, I suppose, the practicalities of cooking. I wanted to come back to you, Andy, and then to Dipna, about what cooking at home, practical stuff. Do you use air fryers? Do you use the conventional oven? How do you make sure it fits into your day and that you're getting all the colours that you need and all the legumes and things?
Well, the colours is about the shopping. Then it's in the fridge and you're going to use it. In the winter, I'm well known for my soups. So you can take a lot of different vegetables, some of them quite elderly, and make a nice soup that can last 2 or 3 days. We share the cooking. I do the soups. My wife does the more sophisticated stuff. I do the breakfasts. The thing is to make a plan. I mean, eventually, and I have some good friends with Parkinson's who've not done this. And about 3 years later, they said, actually, you need to make a plan. And I said, well, if you'd have listened 3 years ago, you'd have got further up the curve. But you don't want to get to Friday evening and have nothing in the freezer and nothing in the fridge. And the best thing to buy is vegetables. They can be combined in different ways. We don't have an air fryer, we have a conventional cooker. So I have no experience of air fryers, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Dipna, I was just going to come to you. So how is your mum? She loved to cook. She still loves to cook.
She absolutely loves cooking. In fact, I think it's fair to say that part of the reason that I'm a chef in the public eye is because of my mum. She's been a super cook, and I've learned a lot of what I know from mum. It's very disheartening to see now that she can't be in the kitchen as much as she would like to, but whenever she has those periods where her medication is working, you'll only find her in the kitchen, still experimenting, and still, I don't know how she does it, but cooking up the best food. She's a lot slower, but she definitely loves to experiment with cooking different things. She loves watching videos and then trying it out for herself. But it's cooking has become a huge challenge, and I think for her, that's what she finds most difficult. But that's not stopped her. I must say, what she tends to do is let's just say she'll make a vegetable curry when she's feeling good, and then I find she pauses for even like 1, 2 hours, and I'll go in the kitchen and everything's just left as it is. But it's living with someone with Parkinson's who's at that stage. For someone like me, it's about getting used to that. She's left the kitchen. It's a bit of a mess, but that's okay. She's going to get back to it when she's able to do it. So I think it's about adapting to their way of new life, because for her it's still a huge challenge. But at the same time, I'll walk in from work and she'll have like a whole meal ready, and I'll be like quite shocked. How did you do all this? Like she'll have a full on roast. So when she's having a good day, she is able to do that. And she, like I said, she absolutely loves cooking, and even like shocks me sometimes in the new dishes that she creates, and I put them on my specials at the gastropub, which is something really nice, and that motivates her.
Yeah, don't stop doing the things that you love, for
Of
sure,
course.
definitely. And I'm just going to mention your YouTube channel, Dipner, because there's loads of videos on there for really tasty meals, and the videos are kind of less than 10 minutes. You don't have to spend hours and hours looking at them, and I've found some of those really good. So I just wanted to
Yeah,
squeeze
that's
that
that's
in.
right. And sorry, you were asking about the equipment and the thing. I do have an air fryer. Mum's not used an air fryer. She does use the oven. She uses the stove a lot. One of her favorite things to make in the morning, I didn't mention this, is her masala ginger tea. She absolutely loves that.
Mm.
And things like that. So yeah, she uses the oven, the basic equipment. She doesn't have too many fried foods, so we don't have a fryer.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. So we've got just a few minutes left. And we've just had a question come in there about doing exercise in the morning, working full time, squeezing in breakfast before going to work, then medication, and things like that, and getting hungry, because trying to leave a gap. So in terms of sort of if you're doing physical activity, what kind of foods might we be thinking about, Marjabin, first thing in the morning, and then post exercise, but pre medication?
I think one solution to that is nowadays there has been a lot of different diet, and there's someone out there in the social media saying that this is the best diet you can ever try and these things. But scheming from them one recipe, I think it is a good in terms of the macros, is chia seeds, some fresh fruits in it with yogurt, a bit of an oats in there. It will keep you full. It will make you energetic in terms of when you do like walking or exercise. And then go for exercise. Have like a smaller second breakfast, which is probably handy, like a toast or something like that, or probably just a boiled egg. That will again give you some source of protein. But I think what is important and what I try to make a point about is it's not just the breakfast or the lunch or the dinner. So if you had a lot of protein in the morning, you can just even it out later in the day so that the whole content of protein is what you want to achieve. Same with protein, same with fat and the carbohydrate as well. So if you are more heavy in terms of your workload or busy in the morning and you need more fuel to work around, in that case, I think have a heavy breakfast, do exercise, have a small midday snack, and then lunch and then dinner. It might work a little bit better.
It's all about timings and trying it out and trying to remember what you've done and when you had a good day, repeating that day, I suppose. Yeah, yeah, definitely. We are coming to the end of our time, if you can believe that. I feel like it's really flown over. I hope we've managed to answer some of your questions. We have tried to work our way through the ones that have come in. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who's attended tonight. Thank you for sending in your questions and being so interactive with us. Thank you so much to the panel. Thank you for your time, for sharing your experience and your expertise also. We do have some leaflets and things like that, booklets around diet. They're on the Parkinson's UK website. They're on the shop. They're free of charge. You don't have to pay postage or anything like that. So you can go and have a look at those, order them. Do be advised by your own healthcare team if you're thinking about making a change. You might need to do it in a particular way. You might need to do it more slowly, or than others. And well, I'd like to say I've heard a rumor it's not going to be raining on Saturday. So you never know. It is only a rumor. Don't hold me to it. But as Dipna always says in her messages, culinary regards to everybody, and hope you all enjoy a dry day. and we will call the recording to an end, Lynn, if that's okay.